Africa World Hour with Tsepiso Makwetla on Channel Africa, the African perspective.
And we continue with Africa World Hour. So today was the second day of the 9th Tokyo International Conference on African Development, or TICAD 9, underway in Yokohama, Japan. As the focus shifts from traditional aid to building sustainable strategic partnerships, Africa's creative economy is emerging as a key area of collaboration. To speak about Japan's evolving role in scaling African creative enterprises, we're joined now by Kayode Adebayo, CEO of Crowd and Board Director at Arts Connect Africa. Very good evening to you. Thank you so much for speaking to us.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Good evening.
So what have been the strategically important collaborations or partnerships that have come out of this year or that are on the table to further elevate Africa's soft power?
Well, I think firstly, there will be a lot of discussions around the culture and the creative economy of the African continent, which in between an $8 to $10 billion market annually, and to a large extent, I personally feel Japan has could have moved far faster, because a lot of the elements of culture, especially in the area of matters around hardware that supports the capturing of the soft power that Africa has, electronics, equipment, and all those things have come from predominantly Japanese markets. I think the creative economy is very, how do I call it now, a low-hanging fruit that I believe that the move in which it has been making in the past 7 to 5 years is strong enough as somewhere where the Japanese as principals can come into and of course support Africa in scaling what Africa has presently and having that strength of domination over the global market.
And just looking at, I was speaking to Francis Ekberger from Oxfam earlier on, and he was saying part of the problem with these partnerships is that they see these countries further expanding on African soil and bringing in their own resources, particularly when we speak about employment and, as you may have mentioned, technology. So what are we saying as Africa that we believe is quintessentially Africa and can be exported to Japan without it being modified, without it being turned into something that is almost such of a transplanted culture, but that is purely African?
Well, I think one, for me, I personally don't really appreciate the fact that a Japanese government, one country, is engaging and addressing Africa as a whole continent together. Africa is 54 countries. And you can imagine the variety of cultures, the variety of the level of diversity across 54 countries, right? Japan is a very small country. Of course, we understand that they are also a superpower, but the reality of it would have been for Japan to kind of focus on it at a country per country basis. But when they kind of pack the whole thing together as Japan and Africa, United States, Africa, Russia, Africa, then there's something there that probably I believe is, kind of like an imbalance. But, if we probably would just talk about it on the positive side, I think Africa has a lot of diversity, especially in the youth population. Africa is the only continent that is growing right now. All the other continents are shrinking in population. By 2030, 2035, Africa will become the biggest and largest youth market all around the globe. And that stands a lot of potentials, especially for labor, affordable labor, and to quite an extent also, and this young population between 25 years and down, will have 1 billion of them by 2035, from the ages of 25 and below. And these guys are, that particular population, that target group is very tech savvy. And of course, these are very active people on the social media space and all that. So there's a lot of value that particular group can can deliver, especially from a soft power perspective. Why? Because these young people they understand the language of the internet, and when you talk about internet, I don't think there's any other thing around scale that is bigger than the internet. So yeah, they stand there to gain a lot, but also I would want a situation where they approach this on a culture per culture basis, on a country per country basis, because Africa is not just one lump of thing. Four languages, major languages on the African, or four major regions: the Lusophone, Francophone, Anglophone, and even the Arabia Africa on African continent. Then by the time you start to break it down into smaller countries, you see that there's a language barrier, the borders are there. Being able to move across Africa is not the easiest thing right now. So I think those things are there, and I think it can be successful, but there's a need to pay attention to those micro elements that come together to form this humongous Africa. And don't forget the fact that even right now, African Union is already looking at how the map of Africa will be adjusted, because a lot of countries that we believe are very sizable right now can fit into Africa very conveniently, and Africa will still have a lot of space. So I think it's for them. This is just more of like wisdom, advising that, if they are to deal with Africa, they should look at it from a more micro approach, and focus more on the country culture basis than just wanting to lump it all together in order to address that matter.
Kayode, I hope we make time to talk about how to export African culture beyond what we're used to, the fashion, and yes, I know the movie industry is very important, but the arts and craft, but the more solid stuff that African culture has been able to achieve, that is often stolen from here and never acknowledged. So hopefully we'll make time for that. Kayode Adebayo, CEO of Crowd and Broad Director at Arts Connect Africa. It's 10 minutes to 10.